In today's video, I head out with all of my gear to some very interesting habitats, including this one along the Great Salt Lake. The point of today's video is to go looking for gulls and try and find some really interesting winter gull visitors. Should be a fun one, stick around with me. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm going gulling today, and some of you might think that's absolutely crazy because gulls are one of the notoriously hard species of birds to identify, and a lot of people, when they see gulls fly over, they might just sheepishly look away so they don't have to include them on their checklist because they are tough. But I think it's fun, honestly. It's a cool puzzle, and we're gonna get into some of the reasons why I think you should try gulling on this adventure today, and I'll share my experience along the way too. Should be a fun one. So I started by coming here to Lee Cay Ponds because it's traditionally one of the best places to look for gulls in the Salt Lake area, but it's not looking too good right now. The ponds behind me are unfortunately pretty dry, and the little water there is frozen over, so there's no open water. I'm gonna drive to the north and see if it's any different, but there's also an event going on within Lee Cay Ponds, and I don't wanna get in the way of that. I wanna be respectful of their rules and whatever's going on there. So I'm gonna go around the outside, and if there's no gulls there, we're gonna have to pivot to a different location. Now, admittedly, I'm birding in one of the worst times of the day. It's the middle of the day. Usually shouldn't matter for gulls. That's more of like a songbird thing, but it does affect my light. I have some pretty harsh sunlight coming down, so not gonna get any award-winning pictures probably, but there's still lots of bird activity, and even if it's not perfect conditions, I still get to enjoy some birds, and that's awesome. I'm seeing a lot of ducks, not really any gulls, so I don't know if I'm gonna hang out here very long. There's a few gulls over there that I'm gonna try and ID, but let's figure out what some of these other species are first. I immediately got to work recording some of the species in the area, and looking out across the water, you can identify a bunch of different waterfowl here. Since I was focused on gulls today, I didn't spend a ton of time picking through every single bird, but you can see mostly ringneck duck here, with the lighter bird in the middle being a canvasback. Let me know if I'm missing any species as I'm calling some of these out though, because I'd appreciate adding some stuff on that I didn't notice right away. But even from these short video clips from my camera, you can see that the heat as the sun warms up the area, mixing with the cold water, is causing some distortion that's making this even more difficult. Still, I was able to get a couple of merganser. I'm pretty positive these were common merganser that were swimming farther away from me, making it even harder to identify. Still some cool birds to pick up just as we start the day out. Now, the super interesting thing about this location is there's a dump right here. It's loud because there's starlings and red-winged blackbirds just going back and forth. Kind of funny to watch them. There's also a bunch of gulls flying up there too. Makes for a really interesting environment that these birds love. Might as well look at some of the starlings. Where are you? Yeah, you can see them up there on the telephone wire. They hang up and then they'll go fly around a bit. Pretty interesting. And I picked up this photo that's a pretty minimalist look at things, but I still liked it. But this is what I'm talking about. You can see the huge amounts of birds moving back and forth between the water and the dump area. It's really interesting. Before deciding to head out, we did see a few American coot too, and then these gulls off in the distance were tough. A couple hooded merganser pop up there right by them, which is neat, but it is really hard to tell with the haze what these species are. So nothing too crazy out here, not as many gulls as I would have hoped, and honestly pretty bad views straight into the sun, so I think I'm gonna move along. I might go over to the Great Salt Lake State Park. I think that's what it's called, just on the south shore of the Great Salt Lake, because I've often seen gulls there. Not a lot of them, but could be a good place to go check out, or even, actually, no, I might go to Black Rock. That could be better. Yeah, I think let's do that. Let's hop over there. I bet there's some gulls in that area. So I did decide to hop over to the Black Rock area, actually passing the Great Salt Lake State Park along the way. I'm now moving to the south shore of the giant Great Salt Lake. Well, I've made it to the location and I am walking towards where I hope there's going to be gulls. I used my binoculars and I could see some. I just saw a group flying over. I don't think there's going to be a lot, but that's okay. I took like 20 minutes by the car figuring out what my gear combo was going to be because I didn't want to be hiking with a bunch of weight, but I still wanted stuff like water. So I ditched all the non-essential stuff. I did strap my scope to the back of my backpack. It's working pretty well. I like this setup, but let's go see if we can find some good birds. Well, I just met someone on the path as I was walking out here and asked them if they saw anything good because they had a scope. And you get hit or miss answers when you ask people that because not everyone's a serious birder, but he told me they had a glaucous gull, which I'm pretty sure would be a lifer for me. I don't think I picked that one up in Oregon, so now I'm extra excited about this gulling adventure I'm going on here, and I feel like I made the right choice. So he said there's a big flock of gulls probably about a mile out towards the Great Salt Lake, so I think I got a bit of a hike here. As we get closer and closer, I'll kind of fill you in on more about how I think about gulling, and hopefully we'll get some pretty cool gulls today. Some birds have certainly been out here. Kind of fun. I'm finally seeing gulls, but they are way out there. This is gonna be an adventure. Well, I'm gonna keep chatting to you while I walk here so I don't get bored, honestly. It reeks of eggshells like the Great Salt Lake often does. Kind of a sulfur smell in the air. And I do kind of just feel like I'm walking on a different planet. This dried up lake bed with little bits of water here. Super interesting. And I'm telling myself that it's another planet to make this more interesting than it is. I'm not just walking through dirt and sand and mud and water. But hopefully there's a payoff at the end. But anyways, why gulling? And why today? I mean, first off, winter is one of the better times to go gulling, at least in the Salt Lake area. We just get a lot more birds coming through, like gulls specifically, in the winter. Not birds overall, that would be migration periods. I wanted to improve my gull ID, add some more gulls to my life list that I haven't seen yet, some of the rarer ones. I've definitely seen plenty, like we have our typical ring-billed gull, California gull, herring gull, not as common, but they're around too. I've even gotten lesser black-backed gull here in Utah, but there's a few that I don't have that I would really like to. Mainly being Iceland gull. I think that one's on my life list, but I've never identified it myself. And the guy told me there's a Thayer's Iceland gull out here, so hoping I see that one. And then glaucous gull has been reported. That is an awesome target if I can get that one. Switch hands because my arm's getting tired of how I'm holding this. But we're still walking out here. Hoping you're finding some of this interesting because this walk is boring and I need to talk. But gulling, approaching going out to look for gulls. I think you'll have a lot better time if you go to a flock of gulls with the anticipation that there's gonna be a handful of them you just can't ID, and that's okay. You don't have to get everyone right. Lower the bar, take the pressure off yourself. It's totally okay to put gull spa on your checklist, and I'm definitely gonna be doing that, especially with flyovers. I am not good at IDing flyover gulls. Secondly, I'm gonna focus first on the adults, just because they're generally easier to tell apart. One of the things that makes gulls so different is there are 3-cycle gulls and 4-cycle gulls, and they look so different year after year. Now, I anticipate a bunch of these will be first-year gulls, just because not all of the gulls make their way to maturity, so any flock is given to have a big chunk of first year and then a big chunk of adults for the ones that do make it. So with not being able to ID all of them and recognizing that, I can kind of just focus on the ones that are interesting. And the strategy that's usually good to employ is know your common gulls well. So for us in Utah, California, and ring-billed gull. Those are the most common and most prevalent ones that can look similar to others. And then I'm gonna try and nail down the ones that are herring gulls here. And so any gull different than those, I can take a closer look at and really look and see what the overall shape is. Can I see its leg color even with this light here? What's its overall structure? Is its head round? Just a lot of things are gonna be going through my head, but when I pick out those individuals, I have a lot less to look at instead of the whole flock one by one. And then with gulls, scopes really do help, and I'm fortunate to have a scope. I know that's not a reality for all of you, but being able to see those field marks and ID features a lot closer with a tool like a scope makes it a ton easier. Now, I'm not saying you go splurge a bunch of money right now just because you're mildly interested in gulls. Birding can and should be a cheap hobby first. If you're serious about it and you really want to take the next step into going into things like gulls and shorebirds and stuff, I do find a scope pretty helpful. Okay, I'm about 200 yards from this first group of gulls I'm seeing here now, so I'm gonna slow down a little bit, hopefully not spook this flock. The gulls that I was interested in slowly came into view, and we were getting just about close enough where I could start identifying them from this distance, but then the worst thing happened. You absolutely hate to see something like this after you've hiked over a mile to reach this flock, and I don't know if it was me that spooked and scared them up and caused them to fly. Thankfully, they pretty quickly settled down. I was so happy after my big walk that they started to land back and resume their normal behaviors, and I could actually identify them. We definitely lost a handful. Some of them just continued onwards to a different area, and I might have missed a glaucous gull because of this, but I had some gulls to pick through, so let's get to it. If I had to hypothesize, most people don't like gulls because they grew up maybe potentially being annoyed by them, seeing them maybe poop everywhere or something like that, or they struggled at the challenge of identifying them. But if you spend some time with them for a while and actually just watching and observing their behaviors, they do a lot of interesting things, and they're one of the birds that have so well adapted to the influence of humans, which I think is fascinating. They make use of our scraps. They are expert like foragers and digging through like dumps and trash, and it's really cool to see a bird evolve in this way to live alongside of the influences that we create. So even though they're tough, I would encourage you just to spend some time with the flock for a while. You get to notice some cool things. These gulls here in the shores of the Great Salt Lake were swishing their feet back and forth to, I assume, dig up food to pick at. It was a really interesting behavior. I don't think I've ever seen really before, or if I had, I just don't remember it. Now, after watching these birds for a while, I did notice in the back there were a few bigger ones. Again, I'm struggling with the heat haze here, but I would guess these were likely herring gulls. And then I had a group of 4 that got pretty close to me, so I got even closer views to see their behavior as they squabbled and kind of fought for their territory of foraging areas. It was really funny to see this dynamic develop. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I am so bad at identifying flyover gulls. I think it's mostly because you don't see their legs, which are a big indicator, and it's harder to tell their structure and size when they're in this form. So if anyone has any tips on this kind of identification, I would love to hear it. It's much easier looking back at these clips. I can tell these are California gull because I can stop the frames. But in the moment, I would have been pretty unsure what they were. Well, so far, this flock has been pretty cool to watch. They've been foraging and stirring up stuff with their feet and then picking at it. Kind of interesting, and there's been a couple real close to me that have been kind of fighting. They keep flying at each other, which is pretty funny. This is mostly California gull, though, from everything I can tell. I'm seeing yellowish legs, dark eyes, and about that size of gull that would be a California. Now there are, I'm pretty positive, 3 herring gull in the back. One was sleeping for a while. I got a few clips of it, and they're just slightly bigger, and they have a yellow iris opposed to that dark one. I'm not seeing a glaucous gull out here. However, I just noticed there's another flock of gulls farther that way. I'm debating on walking over there too, since I'm already out here, but I've already been here for like an hour now just watching this flock. So it's kind of like, how much more time do I want to sink into this? Because I do have some other plans. I gotta head all the way back over that way too. So I don't know, I might start walking a little bit that way and see if it feels worth it, if there's even a crossable path, because I do have some water to work my way around or walk through. Looks like an old TV. It's like electronic parts over there. Really interesting. Look how yellow that water is. I don't know if because it's got sulfur in it or what the deal is. Ooh. That's what I've been walking through. So if you're crazy like me and gonna walk out on these areas of the Great Salt Lake, definitely want some shoes you don't mind trashing. Well, as you probably already guessed, I'm walking out to the other group of gulls. Let's see if it pays off. I kind of feel like that one Outdoor Boys meme. You know what I'm talking about? The, I am on a remote island in somewhere in Alaska.
I am on a remote island on the edge of the Gulf of Alaska at the very top of the Pacific Ocean.
It's not even that remote. There's a big highway behind me, but out here it just feels empty. And it's crazy how big this shore has gotten with the Great Salt Lake drying up. We have some issues with water levels right now, that's for sure. But I'm getting closer to this group of gulls, only about, I'd say probably like 5 minutes, and I should be able to start picking them apart. So we'll get the scope out here in a sec. Well, as beautiful as this shot is of these gulls flying by, this was devastating. This flock of gulls flushed as I got close enough to ID them, and they did not come back, unfortunately. I screwed up. I guess I got too close. I'm still like 50 yards more probably. That's probably over 100 yards away, and they all flew up. I guess I was too much of a threat. There's still 3 of them hanging out there, and interestingly, all 3 of the ones hanging out there appear to all be herring gull. So there was at least some other species besides California gull there, but damn. That sucks. You walk all the way out here and the birds you were looking at just take off and head out. I was watching the flying birds trying to see if there were any that didn't have any black like wingtips or anything, because the glaucous gull is a very, very white gull, and I still am not seeing anything that looked like it could be it. So this day might just be one where I go without a new lifer gull, and that's okay. It's been a fun day, even if I screwed up. Yep, and there goes the last gull right now, taking off. Oh, silly me. could show you him flying away. Guess we walk back now. Even if I screwed up there, I put my drone up into the air to kind of just have some fun as I neared the end of my day. It was really cool to be able to show you all the vastness of the area that I was walking through and get some kind of unique perspectives of the environment. Now, interestingly though, a lot of the gulls I saw fly away, I do think landed back closer to shore. So as I got back closer to where I was walking towards my car and the rock you see in the distance, I had another shot at seeing some cool gulls. And sure enough, instead of California gulls, you can see all of these gulls, well, most of them at least, have pink legs. There's still 2 California gulls, and there's one off to the right here too, but these are likely herring gulls. Now I'm going to flash a few pictures on the screen here just to give you a look and see these herring gulls. And I want to show you what I used and the process I went through to ID these birds. So the birds on the far left, there's 2 of them, are both California gull. And you can tell a lot of the birds in the middle are bigger, so that's a first great indicator. Now, size is not always the most reliable indicator, but these birds are at an equal distance from me, so it becomes a little more reliable there. The biggest tell for me though, these birds have pink legs, whereas California gulls have yellow legs. Now, these colored legs can look similar at younger ages, but these birds are adults because they have a lot more white. They don't have that brown juvenile plumage anymore, or at least they're approaching adulthood. If I zoom in even closer, you might also be able to tell the yellow iris on these birds' eye is different from the California gull's dark black eye. Now that I knew I had some different birds from the California gulls, I looked at them more closely to see if I could find anything interesting. The bird on the far right here interested me because its bill looks like it's a little more yellow-greenish and it has no red on it. I do think this is probably just a younger gull, however, a younger American herring gull and not something more interesting, but I'd be curious to know if some of you experts out there think differently and this is a different species altogether. Here's one more look really zoomed in at this bird that I found interesting. I ultimately am just calling this one an American herring gull, I think, but maybe you guys will tell me something different. And just to round out some cool birds, I had a younger herring gull here, I'm pretty sure, just because it still has some of those brown feathers as it's in the middle of its molt. But one last look at a photo of a California gull that I really liked. Just a nice little reflection in the water with some good colors in the background. So I'm coming to the end of this gulling adventure and a few more tips to kind of round out what I would recommend for you. The biggest one that would make a huge difference is to get between the sun and the gulls you're looking at. When gulls are in and out of shadows or backlit, it is so much harder to be able to tell what their leg color is, if their eye has a yellow iris or if it's just shadowed. When I have the sun to my back and the gulls in front of me, it just became miles easier. You can see from these birds that I'm looking at right now, the yellows and the orangish bill color really pops so much more with the sun shining from this direction opposed to the area I was scoping from earlier in the day. And it's so much easier to tell California gull. And honestly, I would just recommend trying to appreciate what you have in front of you, even if it's not a rare bird. And this goes for birding in general, but gulls specifically. I had mostly California gulls for most of the day. Probably one of Utah's most common gulls, if not the most common. Ring-billed is up there too. But it was really fun just to watch their behaviors and enjoy being out here in this unique landscape. And I was enjoying it, even though there wasn't any crazy rarities. And I try to bring that perspective into birding anytime I go out. Just really appreciate what you do come across, enjoy the nature. I love just being out, getting the chance to film these videos for you, trying to get the best shots as possible or find something extra cool. There's always something to enjoy is what I'm getting at. And although the glaucous gull didn't end up appearing for me, that's okay. It still was a very fun adventure. We had some mishaps, we had some highs too, so that's what's gonna happen in birding sometimes. It's not gonna be all sunshine and roses, and gulling is a unique challenge for sure. I very well could have got some of the identification wrong in this video, so Seriously, I encourage you to give it a try and not take it too seriously. Try and enjoy the process. I really think it's a fun puzzle to try and figure out these birds, and it's something I'm going to continue to work on and hopefully get better at. And to kind of wrap up the day, here's some of my favorite in-flight photos I got of gulls while I was out. The light was definitely harsh and made some hard shadows to deal with when I was editing these, and I don't know if any of them will make it on my Instagram, but I still enjoyed them, especially this one of the gull emptying the tank. Well, it is time to bring this journey to an end. I hope you enjoyed these gull adventures. A little bit of a different video than what I usually make. So I definitely plan on going to try and find some more gulls in a future video. I'm gonna get that glaucus, I promise you that. But thank you for watching this one. I'll see you in the next one. Happy birding.